I just sat down with Ralph Dillon, CEO of DigitalBD. Ralph has over 25 years of experience on Wall Street and is now at the cutting edge of technology when it comes to global markets. In this interview, Ralph and I discuss getting debanked by the previous administration and the SEC and making it very difficult for crypto firms like his to access capital. Ralph is truly a wealth of knowledge, and I promise you're going to want to stick around towards the end of this video because we discuss something you're not going to want to miss. Before we jump in, one last thing. If you felt like you got value from this video, please go ahead and subscribe for me, like the video, and share the video. Now here's my interview with Ralph Dillon. Welcome back to another episode of the Coin Zone here on Crypto with Paul. And we have a special guest for you guys, special interview today with Ralph Dillon, the CEO of DigitalBD. Ralph, thanks for joining the channel today.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're glad to be having this conversation with you today. And DigitalBD, you guys do a lot of interesting stuff with blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies. So I'm excited to learn a bit about, more of your history working in Wall Street, the experience you had there, and then bringing that into, what you guys do at DigitalBD as well. And, we went to the same university. Shout out to Monmouth. So always good, always good there. But
not many people could say that. But yeah,
definitely
we're from the same area. Yeah, it's great school, by the way.
Absolutely beautiful campus.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just wanted to kick it off here, Ralph, and kind of ask you, you have a long history and experience in Wall Street. So yeah. I guess my first question would be, off the bat, what kind of drove you initially to start looking into blockchain technologies and stuff like this, during your transition from basically TradFi Wall Street roles to what you guys are doing now with DigitalBD?
Yeah, well, initially what drove, the company's direction into the blockchain is, the transparency of it all. We really sink our teeth into the underbelly, if you will, of Wall Street, and that being all the manipulative activity that takes place at the banks, the brokers, but more importantly, the market makers. That's very little is that spoken about, but in my opinion, a vast majority, if not all of it, starts at the market maker level and the process that has been automated through very sophisticated algorithms and things like that. So that's really what started it was about 7-8 years ago where we came to a fork in the road, and we were just saying the corruption on Wall Street will never be addressed. It will never be taken care of by the regulators. The regulators are never going to do anything about it. And for us, we're trying to clean up the messes that we find on Wall Street to help increase shareholder value and bring some kind of integrity to the way that stocks are traded, more importantly, on publicly traded markets. So for us, we were just banging our heads up against the wall and kind of recognizing that old saying that, stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and doing it over and over and thinking you're going to get different results. So I saw the blockchain as a end-all solution, if you will, to bring integrity back to way stocks can and should be trading on Wall Street.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
And in your experience so far, you guys have had, basically some issues, legal issues, just hurdles to jump through. And why do you think that is? There was the former SEC, we had Gary Gensler, who made it very difficult for crypto firms to basically just operate. There wasn't a lot of clarity. But do you think it's because this tech is threatening to that system that you just mentioned and the grasp that they have on this whole thing?
Look, it's a great question. Okay. I wish I could say and sit here and tell you with 100% certainty that I know for a fact that this is what's going on. I can't do that, but your instincts tell you a lot about the situation that you're in. And, if it's one coincidence, maybe, if it's two, but when it's just problem after problem after problem after problem, and my compliance team is telling me, I cannot believe all the issues that we're having, it just leads me to believe, and in my gut, I just feel that there's too many weird coincidences in my path of getting to where I am today with my broker dealer. I bought a broker dealer 4 years ago, and it's taken 4 years, over $1.5 million, God knows how much in legal expenses, to get the broker dealer across the finish line. And frankly, just last week, we finished changing the name of the broker dealer. I mean, so 16 submissions in 3 years just to change the name of the broker dealer with the state of California. It's just too many weird things have happened in my journey, my personal journey, that I can't just I can't just brush under the rug as coincidence. It's just not coincidence to me. But yeah, it's been a quite a legal or a regulatory battle. I'll tell you, the fight for me started when I filed my paperwork with FINRA for my broker dealer. That's when all the fun started for me. In fun, I say tongue in cheek, obviously. But we were trying to introduce the blockchain and digital assets, not necessarily crypto or crypto coins or meme coins, nothing like that. What we're trying to do is use digital assets in a way that haven't been used on Wall Street before, but to use them as tools to route out short positions and naked short selling and address the problem of phantom shares that are being created and placed into the markets. That's just absolutely destroying the integrity of how publicly traded companies are trading on public markets.
Yeah. I'm also interested and curious to see if this is in relation at all, but we saw recently the Nancy Pelosi Act, I believe is what it was called, might be introduced. And obviously, some of these market makers could be big time politicians, anything like that. Is that maybe another hurdle, do you think, down, so far that's been causing this to continue for you guys to have issues?
No, that kind of stuff isn't an issue. It's my belief. Again, it's in my experience, the regulators are part of the problem. The regulators are part of a much bigger problem that exists on Wall Street. So no, I don't think it has any. The politicians certainly are the ones that are drafting and crafting. You said Gensler. I mean, you look at what Gensler was doing, and how aggressive he was against any innovation in this market. And it's unbelievable to me, as the United States, that we don't have clear regulatory infrastructure at this point of the game. My God, we are so far behind the curve as it pertains to the way that it's going on in Europe and in Asia and around the world. It's being adopted everywhere. But the financial powerhouse of the entire world is reluctant to embrace blockchain technology. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So it was like a ham and egg approach to regulatory, and that is very, very political. So there's influence in that regard, sure. But Pelosi herself, I mean, that's just nonsense. All the things that they're trading on and doing. Our focus has really been where DigitalBD really sinks our teeth into the markets, is finding, locating, and addressing the problem of naked short selling. Naked short selling is very abusive in the markets. It's incredibly destructive to shareholder value, and frankly, it's done unfettered. It's really, you don't see very much being done to address how phantom shares are being created on Wall Street. At the market level, and just how destructive they are to the shareholders who own those said companies. And it's so pervasive, it's happening everywhere. And frankly, a lot of it at this point, with the advent of technology, it's gotten automated. You get these big, powerful market makers that automate everything using very sophisticated algorithms that they've spent billions of dollars on. It's no longer like it was when I was starting out in the business in 1993. We would call down to the desk if we had a client who wanted to short a position. We had to call down to the desk. We had to locate and borrow the shares. The trader would call back from the desk, 15 minutes after you asked him to short a position, and he would say, "We've located the shares. You're okay to short it." And he'd give you a ticket number. That doesn't happen anymore. Yeah, it does. Sure it does, but a lot of it has just been automated through the use of very sophisticated algorithms and technologies, and it creates a massive problem. They're just frankly selling shares that they didn't locate, they didn't borrow, and in some scenarios that don't even exist, they're selling you shares that don't exist. And look, this problem is spoken about. There's advocates like Patrick Byrne at Overstock.com who for years have been talking about this problem. But again, it seems that those problems are just swept under the carpet, by the regulators. From here, every now and again, you'll hear the SEC comes out and fines a company or fines a broker dealer, and they say, XYZ wirehouse was fined $10 million today for abusive short selling and But you have to understand, that $10 million fine that they paid is a line item on their balance sheet. It's lunch money, because the next day they're right back at it and they're going to town. And it creates hundreds of millions, if not billions, of hundreds of billions. I mean, it's incalculable how much money they're making using this practice. So, That's really where we have sunk our teeth into. That's kind of where we are, and trying to bring back the integrity, some sorts of transparency to how publicly traded stocks are traded, and the blockchain solves that problem. It solves that problem.
So solving the issue of the naked short selling, what are some of the blockchains that you've used at DigitalBD so far, or some of the cryptos that you've used to address some of those issues?
Well, we haven't. Okay, so we've partnered. What we started to do is we started to one was when I bought it's a great question, but it's a very complicated answer. So let me try and be as articulate on it as I can. Okay, so when you buy a broker dealer, you can't just go out and buy a broker dealer. Okay, you have to go to the regulators, in particular FINRA, and you have to tell them, hey, I want to buy a broker dealer, and you have to give them a game plan, if you will, like a proposal. Like, here's what we're doing. Here's how we want to run our broker dealer. Here's what we want to do, right, going forward. And you have to get their blessing. I submitted my plans to FINRA, okay? And in those plans, we submitted the regulatory paperwork, and we got approved to go buy a broker-dealer. I then bought the broker-dealer. My plan was to introduce the blockchain and digital assets into the broker-dealer to use with publicly traded companies. And what the goal is, my goal would be, is that I want to eventually bring companies public on the blockchain, okay? So, what we started to do is we started talking about how we were going to integrate all of this together. And we partnered with a company out of Zug, Switzerland, who already have the only fully regulated blockchain-based exchange that has all the KYC, AML. It's part of the World Federation of Exchanges. And you are able to dual list U.S. publicly traded companies onto their blockchain exchange. And they're out of Zug, Switzerland. And as soon as I got the approval to buy the broker dealer and I bought the broker dealer, then you have to submit much more elaborate paperwork on what exactly that you're going to do in order to get an approval. That's when all the fun started for me, because as soon as we started laying bare everything that we were setting out to do, it just kept getting struck down. Boom, one after another. This, that, boom. You can't do this, can't do that, can't go there, can't do that. There's no regulatory. On one of the conference calls that we had with the regulators, it was a striking conversation, because it was more or less, and I can't remember exactly how the wording went in the conversation, but it was, Mr. Dillon, if I had said, hey, listen, we're a year and a half, 2 years into this process, and we're still no closer to getting approval than we were 2 years ago. I've spent over $1.5 million. It's been a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources have been poured into this, and I don't see the finish line, and I don't understand why this is taking so long. And they said to me, kind of tongue in cheek, well, if you continue down the path that you're on, you can expect to have another year and a half and spend another $1.5 million, because you're never going to get blockchain and digital assets into your broker dealer. And I thought that was a pretty striking comment, because at the time, JPMorgan and BlackRock were executing a currency transaction, and it was all over the financial news that morning. So I'm sitting here at my desk, and then I've got the financial news on, and it just so happened that in that day or the day before, it was just in the news, just reading it, that JPMorgan Chase and BlackRock had done a currency transaction on the blockchain. So I asked them, how you're telling me that there's no blockchain regulatory framework for blockchain, but how is JPMorgan and BlackRock executing currency transactions on the blockchain? And it was more like, oh, well, they're the biggest and finest institutions in the world, and they've got so, I read into that as, here I am, an entrepreneur, trying to get into, introduce a really cool, innovative technology that can radically transform the plumbing of Wall Street as we know it. And I'm being told I can't do it, but the big boys can go do it. And it made no sense to me. Like, none of it made any sense to me. So the outcome was, that was about 2 years ago, right? So about a year ago, I just had a sit down with my compliance team and my lawyer, and we came to the realization that as long as Gary Gensler and that environment towards anything crypto, anything blockchain, anything digital assets, none of it was going to fly. And we decided at that point, we sat down with the regulators, my compliance team, ask them if we pull out blockchain and digital assets from our operating agreement, if you will, it's called the CMA, with the regulators, can we get approval for the broker dealer to then start operating, right? Because we needed the broker dealer up and running, and we needed approved, and we needed to get, it had to start paying for itself, is what it had to start doing, So we stripped out blockchain and digital assets in order to get the broker dealer across the finish line, and pray to God that we got some sort of regulatory framework going forward that would be consistent. Number one, consistent, and not a ham and egg approach to a regulatory infrastructure, but a very consistent regulatory environment that would be very favorable towards blockchain and digital assets. And thank God, I think we're on that path, and I think we're headed down that path. And I expect, it's my opinion, and again, just my opinion, I think that we are going to see very favorable environment and regulatory framework for all of crypto assets, digital assets, blockchain. I just think that there's so much innovation that's going to happen in this sector, and God bless it, because we sorely need a better regulatory environment in the financial sector, for sure.
Yeah. So how has that been, the transition from, the previous administration, Gary Gensler's SEC? Now, obviously, we have the Trump administration. They've been very positive in regards to the sentiment that they're creating behind digital assets, behind Bitcoin. We have Paul Atkins as the new chair of the SEC, and we just had the Genius Act. So a lot of this positive legislation is already happening. The Clarity Act we might get in September. So what's that been like from your perspective as the CEO of one of these companies that's trying to use digital assets in your company to enhance the business and as a tool to enhance, your clients or whoever else you're serving? How has that been now dealing with Paul Atkins, SEC, and this new administration?
Well, it's clearly been a breath of fresh air, that's for sure. I mean, it's been fantastic, because if there's one thing that we're seeing in really everything with this administration is, unlike politicians that say one thing and do the other thing, I mean, there's really been a rollout. What they say they're going to do, they're doing. And it's funny, look, you love it or hate it, Trump. I mean, it has nothing to do, what I'm going to say has nothing to do with Trump, but they've tried to destroy the guy on so many different levels, right? One of the things that they were able to do to him, okay, was the debanking, okay? So if you can't beat them, they tried all the gimmicks in the world, so that administration, the Trump administration, Trump in particular, knows firsthand what they were able to do to him from a debanking perspective. And frankly, I think it opened his eyes to a whole world of a different kind of corruption, a monetary corruption, if you will, that exists on Wall Street. So I think it was an eye opener for him to see how they can weaponize even the financial markets to destroy the company. The Donald Trump stock, he changed his SPAC into a publicly traded company, right? So the ticker symbol is DJT. DJT had massive amounts of shorting. The guy was campaigning on not taking corporate money and stuff like that. He was self-funding his campaign, and he was using his stock as a means of currency to help fund his campaign. So what did they do? They started shorting the stock. The stock was getting absolutely obliterated. And Devin Nunes, who's the CEO of that company, is a very, very big advocate of all of these sweeping changes, because he understands what exactly was happening with that company's trading, how that stock was trading. So it's been an eye opener to see somebody come in and actually do what they said they were going to do, number one. But what the regulatory framework, the importance of it is that it's going to provide a tremendous amount of transparency, which is needed. But again, it's that regulatory framework of knowing what the rules are, because right now, nobody knows what the rules are, and nobody even knows the SEC and the CFTC can't even figure out who's going to govern, if you will, or regulate that space. So it's just very confusing for entrepreneurs like myself, because there's opportunity galore, and we're being funneled into old technologies that are outdated and inefficient. It's time for massive change.
Yeah. And sticking on the debanking sentiment for a little bit, you're 100% correct. And that the Trump family said in large part, that's why they got into cryptocurrency so heavily. We've also seen guys like Tyler Winklevoss of Gemini be very outspoken about his issues and experiences being debanked. Brian Armstrong of Coinbase discussed it on the Sean Ryan podcast recently. But I'm curious to know did you guys experience anything like that as well, and like making it harder to get a loan for the company or anything
Yeah,
personal like that?
yeah. First of all, I have no loans. There's everything is self-funded. Our business is very robust. It's functioning well. So for us, it wasn't a matter of loans. Where we had problem was opening an account. So we had trouble finding a bank that would open an account, and we did. We finally got an account opened at one of the major. I'm not going to mention the name, but we finally got an account opened, and at a major bank, and inexplicably, one day I had no funds in my account. The account was at zero. When I inquired about where the funds were inside of the account, I was told that I had to go to a local branch office. I went to that local branch office that I opened the account in, and I was told that my account had been closed, and that they, why did the account get closed? And they proceeded to tell me that they didn't have to explain anything, and more or less, thank you for your business and get out of here. That's really what I got. So I inquired, well, where's the check? I'm running a business. I have payroll. I've got to, I got to meet expenses. I need to have access to my capital. Where is the money? Well, we mailed you a check. Now I'm in Newport Beach, California. They said the check was mailed from corporate headquarters in New York. You should have it within 5 to 7 business days. Now, as a business owner, 5 to 7 business days without access to capital is a killer. Okay. So 5 to 7 business days, I was not happy. Now I had to find another bank to open an account with. Okay. Which again was another challenge to then, when I received the check, deposit the check. Well, what ended up happening is after 7 days, there was no check. And I went back to the bank. I told them that there was no check and that I needed to have a cashier's check cut at the local branch. They refused to do it. They would not give me a check, and said that they were canceling the check that was mailed and that they would reissue, and it would be 5 to 7 business days. Okay. Well, 5 to 7 more business days went by. Still no check. I went back to the branch. I guess you could say I was a little bit more animated, but at this point, very frustrated with what was happening. Long story short, I do get the check. And it was about 27 days without access to capital. And then I deposited a cashier's check, or a cashier's check. I mean, it's from a major bank into another major bank, and they held the funds for 14 days. Okay, so it was a long stretch. 6 weeks of 7 weeks of access, no access to capital. Again, is that a coincidence? Maybe. I just don't think that that's coincidence in terms of how everything was handled. And that's just one example. I can run off a dozen examples of things very similar to that happened that just make no sense. But getting your bank account just literally shut down and told, we owe you no explanation. There was nothing going on in the account that was, there was no activity. I mean, it was just paying bills for the company and that, and accepting new customers and things like that. I mean, so it was very odd. It was very strange. It was a terrible experience, to be honest with you.
Wow, that's crazy to hear. I appreciate you sharing that for our audience here, because we've been talking about some of this debanking stuff with some of the names that I've mentioned, and it's just insane to hear how difficult they've made it for American entrepreneurs to basically do nothing illegal, but choosing not to give you that clarity to be able to do these types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's funny, Paul, is that you just said, it's crazy how they can find ways to effectively cease and desist you without you doing anything, right? So there's all these different ways that they have, through commenting and inquiring about things that effectively shut your business down until you can resolve those questions that they have and comments that they have. And it's crazy how many hurdles can be put in front of you, as an entrepreneur, and in particular in this sector. I mean, because it's a lightning rod for all kinds of different. You're getting it from all angles. Is frankly where I'm going with that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the word plumbing before, which is interesting. But I'm glad you did, because the plumbing behind how Wall Street operates. So I'm curious, now that you have kind of both experiences with traditional Wall Street and now with blockchain technology, how do you see like the future interplay, I guess, between the two, TradFi system with now this new system that could radically improve some of these traditional systems?
Well, for one, let me just tell you, the blockchain, no market makers, no middleman, no shorting, no borrowing, no front running, no spoofing, no layering. It is completely transparent. It matches buyer to seller, and the transaction is settled instantaneously. The blockchain is the final solution for Wall Street's plumbing problem, and it's going to radically change how the markets. The problem is that there's very little liquidity. There's very little market, and I think that has to be addressed. The liquidity aspect has got to be addressed for the industry to make it. The regulatory framework that I believe is coming will address that liquidity issue, but the liquidity issue is really the biggest issue right now. It's got to be more widely accepted. There's just not trillions of shares that are trading on the blockchain right now. I believe that that's coming. It's going to take a few years again because we're so far behind the curve with regards to how other markets have adopted the technology and integrated it and are using it. But it's coming. I believe that regulatory framework is coming, and the plumbing that we mentioned, or you brought up again. I think that the blockchain is going to provide that plumbing change to Wall Street because it takes away the single biggest problem, and I believe in the markets is at the market maker level. I think that it's going to make markets much more efficient and transparent for sure. But again, the liquidity has got to be addressed as a factor in moving forward. It has to be more widely adopted so that stocks can trade more freely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you too. I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for example, discussed one day on the future maybe putting the voting system on a blockchain because it does offer that transparency and it's not something that could be corrupted, anything like that. So I'm curious, was that?
I didn't know that he said. I don't know that he said that, but I agree with him 100%. I've been saying that for years. I've been saying that for years that the voting should be on the blockchain.
Yeah, it makes the most sense, and I think that's one of the aspects of DigitalBD, I believe, that you guys pride yourself in is that transparency. So could you walk me through maybe the defining moment that you kind of realized and a switch went off when you realized these technologies is kind of the future that you wanted to take the company into, because just how incredible it could be?
Yeah. So my company is broken up. I have, my company, my holding company, my core business is DigitalBD Inc. Okay. That's my core business. The broker dealer is a separate entity, but they're affiliates, right? So we have separated the business so that we have the broker dealer can handle anything to do with the capital markets. And I have a CEO who runs the broker dealer independent of what I'm doing with my company, because we're doing a lot of different unique things inside and they need to be separated and run. So they're firewalled apart, but they communicate. DigitalBD owns the broker dealer, right? So the broker dealer is Global Digital Markets, and Global Digital Markets is integrating and adapting and trying to bring the same types of efficiency and transparency that we are striving for at DigitalBD. We're trying to apply that same standard into the financial markets and the capital markets, in particular with capital raises, how money is raised. Okay. It is my opinion that again, it's all opinions, but it's my belief, my opinion, that the problem with the efficiency of how publicly traded stocks are traded, Wall Street is always the winner 100% of the time. If it goes up, they win. If it goes down, they win. And what we have found is the way that the capital markets are structured in terms of how companies raise capital is flawed. In my opinion, it's flawed. Okay. Flawed in a sense where if you're going to raise $5 million for a company, why can't you just raise $5 million for a company? Why does it have to come with all these bells and whistles? I call it the goodies that get baked into these banking deals, because the companies get stuck in a never-ending cycle of where they have to raise capital because they're dependent on raising more money, or they've got delisting notices, and there's all kinds of things that the companies have to deal with. But they're constantly looking to raise money, and every time that they raise money, they dilute the shareholders. But inside of the capital raises that they're doing, the deals that they're doing, what we've started to see is that there's goodies that are baked into into the investment banking deals, again, that are very detrimental to the shareholders, but beneficial to the guys who create these banking deals. So, we were saying, well, man, if we can somehow do, raise capital for these companies, but do them completely transparent. You need $5 million. We're going to raise you $5 million. We're going to try and raise that money without any Wall Street influence. We are going to go to the dumb money people. We're going to raise the capital in smaller dollar amounts at a much higher volume. So instead of bringing in one Wall Street firm that's going to do a $5 million raise and give them a banking deal that is full of goodies, and it's destructive to shareholder values. What if we can do that same raise for $5 million with smaller dollar amounts, much more participants, and bring investors into the deal instead of an institutional client? With the hopes that if we are able to find ways, innovative ways to drive capital into publicly traded companies or privately held companies and figure out a way to bypass Wall Street and let people invest in things as opposed to Wall Street trading them, right? So, and just using it as a means to make another buck. Boom, 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 boom. So we thought that was an innovative concept. And that's, again, why we bought the broker dealer, was to help steer companies and privately held companies and publicly held companies, to give them an opportunity to do things transparently and do them without lower fees. If we can drive the costs down for those capital raises and do it transparently, I think that that's a home run for everybody. And eventually, we'd like to integrate the blockchain into that process as well, and and allow companies to go onto the blockchain. Like I said, our goal is to take. We have a company right now that we're working with, a Belgian dental company. We are the broker dealer is not DigitalBD, but the broker dealer is doing a raise for them. DigitalBD is doing all of the marketing. We have a very unique marketing technology that we use. It's an innovative technique, I'll tell you that. But it allows us to do targeting using social media and to find investors for companies. And we are looking for ways to innovate how money and capital is allocated to these companies. But it's important to point out is that it's important to point out that the money that's being raised for these companies is void of Wall Street. That's just the most important aspect of what we're looking for, is to find capital, find investors, link the investors to the companies and have them invest into the company, as opposed to just looking at it as a transaction, which Wall Street clearly does.
Absolutely. And everything you're saying kind of falls under the umbrella of what DeFi offers, decentralized finance. You don't have to use Wall Street anymore to do some of these things that you just mentioned. So be curious, in regards to raising capital funds, that's something I can see DeFi being a big role in the future, being very helpful. But what other ways do you think, utilizing blockchains and utilizing decentralized finance, do you think DigitalBD and your other company would be able to use just in everyday, day-to-day operations?
Well, for one, I'll give you one example. There's, again, regulatory infrastructure, regulatory framework is mandatory for the United States. Again, we've talked about this, but if you're able to take a private placement, raise money for a client, and then the problem with private placements is you need a liquidity event in order to exit that said private placement, right? So there's got to be some sort of liquidity event in order for you to get out of that investment. So what we would propose and what we advocate is that if you're able to do the capital raise on the blockchain and then list that on the blockchain, why can't you provide a secondary market for private placements on a blockchain? It's something that I would strongly advocate for. As long as there's a buyer and a seller, I don't understand why there shouldn't be a transaction. And if we can provide a market where, let's say somebody's in a private placement and they paid $50,000 for it, and after 2 or 3 years, they want to get out of that, but there's no liquidity event. They really can't get out of it, or the terms of getting out of it with the company aren't advantageous for them. Why can't they have an exchange that they can list it on? Now, there is an exchange, and we're partnered with them that offers such things. But as a U.S.-based company, we're not allowed to participate in that. So again, here's where the regulatory infrastructure kind of gets in the way, where we say, okay, well, if we can't do it here in the United States, we're going to do it offshore. not working, not happening that way. They will shut you down immediately. They would shut in the past. They would, right? So again, I'm going to say the regulatory infrastructure has to change. I mean, so it can accommodate us having the flexibility to provide different types of solutions for our customers here in the United States. To be able to provide them with innovative technologies or solutions to address any of the needs that they have. I mean, it's something that clearly needs to be addressed.
Yeah. And in your view, if you could maybe dive deep into that even a little bit more, maybe just with these advancements in the blockchain scalability, the interoperability, how do you think that's going to shape the next basically 5 to 10 years in global financial markets? And then how do you think Digital BD fits into that whole thing?
Yeah, it's hard to, I don't want to pontificate on, it's going to happen in this. Well, what I can tell you is that in my experience in the last 5 to 10 years, everything's changing so rapidly. Everything's changing. What's hot today is cold tomorrow, and what the future promises doesn't come to fruition. I don't know whether that's because of the regulatory issues that we discussed, or is technology changing that fast? And I believe it's a mixture of both, right? Because there were interesting, like the NFTs, for example. You think about that, a $3 trillion market at one point, and then it effectively got completely shut down, right? It went from the hottest thing to nothing, right? Now, where is the NFT market going to shake out? What's going to be, where's the dust going to settle with NFTs? I think that NFTs can be used by publicly traded companies as a means to, reach out and do things productive with their shareholders. Maybe there's an opportunity that exists there. Maybe we can use the NFTs to help foster liquidity in the capital markets. I don't know. I don't know where it's all going to pan out, but I see creative ways. And in particular, what about we would like to look? I think that in my business, the problem for me in my business, or not necessarily the problem, but where I see the biggest problem as it pertains to Wall Street is short selling, naked short selling, phantom shares. Okay. I have a very innovative way to use digital assets, and I call it a dividend. Okay. So dividends can be paid in 2 different ways, cash and stock. That's it. On Wall Street, if a company wants to do a dividend, you get stock and cash. What if the company issued a dividend as a digital asset? Okay. Now, that is pretty innovative. It's very, very cool. It's something that, Patrick Byrne started touching on. But why is that cool? I'll tell you why it's cool, because what it does is it exposes the naked short position, because it makes it incredibly difficult to reconcile the books when that dividend is issued. Okay, so think about this. I always make that, whenever I'm discussing this, I always make reference to that meme that has the Spider-Mans who are standing in a circle and they're all pointing at one another. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but that's what I've envisioned. When I talk about this, the problem that it creates for Wall Street is that they can't find who's accountable for all these phantom shares that have been created. And what it starts is Wall Street doing the circular Spider-Man, where they're all pointing to each other, the transfer agent, the wirehouse, the broker-dealer, the DTCC, whoever's in that circle, the transfer agent, they're all blaming one another because there's nobody can take accountability for it, because the problem has been created by that ecosystem, right? So that's one way that I see that digital assets can be, do something very productive and to help, again, change the plumbing of how Wall Street is done. The blockchain enables all of that. Okay. And if we can get companies to move, okay, if we can get, and I've done this, okay, is we started referring our clients to dual list onto the blockchain, and it got shut down. Okay. We had multiple companies that we referred to the blockchain. The goal is if you take them off the NASDAQ and you put them on a blockchain-based exchange, yes, there was no liquidity. There was very little, if any, liquidity. But the problem is that the companies themselves were being eaten alive by short selling. They were looking for solutions to stop the bleeding and to offer their shareholders a different way to trade their stock as opposed to just leaving it on Wall Street. So these companies started dual listing onto the blockchain. The regulators shut it all down. Okay. They came in and said, this is not happening. Okay. So any US based company, again, couldn't go play on the blockchain. Okay. And effectively, it forced us to have to say, okay, we're going to have to back off of this until we get that regulatory framework. So I think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of innovation. I know that I'm focused on my little niche in my universe in addressing what we see as the problem. Entrepreneurs in this sector are phenomenal. I mean, it blows me away, some of the things. And I speak to a lot of companies, that are kind of in my position, startup, entrepreneurial type companies. And the innovation is fantastic. There's so much going on. I really, the industry has evolved and flourished in one of the fiercest barroom knuckle fights that I've ever seen, as it pertains to, you're fighting the banks, you're fighting the regulators, you're fighting the market makers, you're fighting sophisticated algorithms. I mean, the fight is every single day, every single day there's just something else. I always make this joke too, is that, we had a call with one of our regulators and my compliance team is on the call, and my lawyer, we're all on the call, and it was a contentious call, and we get off the phone call and we say, okay, we're going to powwow on a Zoom. Everybody get on the Zoom. So we get on the Zoom, and the first thing that comes out of my compliance officer's mouth is he says, Ralph, I got to tell you, that was a very, very uncomfortable phone call. I mean, I was very uncomfortable. I think we're doing things that are cool, but that made me very uncomfortable, that phone call with the regulator. And I said to him, hey, listen, if that call made you uncomfortable, I think you're going to need to resign. You could send me a resignation, because if that made you uncomfortable, I'm going to make you a whole hell of a lot more uncomfortable going forward when things start to open up for us, because we're going to be doing things that you've never seen before. And we're going to do things in a way that you better get comfortable with, because, going forward, we plan on innovating or doing some innovating things that frankly, haven't been done before. It's just our goal to do something, in that regard.
Yeah. Now, when you start actually going about implementing some of these services, have you guys looked at any specific blockchain to utilize, whether it's Ethereum or anything else for these services?
I don't want to get into the weeds in terms of the technologies and things like that. It opens up a can of worms. You could spend hours talking about it, but yeah, the Ethereum network is the Ethereum chain is where we're focused. And again, unless something changes, I think that's the best place to be. If something changes or there's new technologies come out, look, we have to be adaptive. We have to be able to turn on the dime. We've got to be able to recognize that the environment is changing again, because like you said, it's changing and it's happening so quickly, so yes, we're constantly looking for ways to make the process or make the product or make what we do better. It's what we're striving to do, and hopefully, there's new technologies that come out that can help us do that.
Yeah. And then going off in a different direction, I know you've obviously probably seen Michael Saylor. They just, changed their name to Strategy legally, but the Bitcoin treasury companies are starting to really heat up. Ethereum treasury companies, what Tom Lee is doing, they're starting to pop up as well. So as a CEO, have you ever thought about possibly adopting some sort of Bitcoin reserve strategy or maybe Ethereum or anything else?
Right now, my focus is on growing my business. That's what my focus is on. Finding clever ways to help do so. No, it's not a focus. Again, always looking for ways to make the business more innovative, always looking for ways to improve how we do our business or how we can do our business. But implementing something like that at this stage for me, I'm too busy running my business. I have a million things to do every day. That's just not a priority for me right now.
Gotcha. And then I guess moving away from that, then what, advice would you have for maybe similar companies in your position, size-wise, et cetera, that are wanting to dive into digital assets? You've have some experience with the previous administration, a lot of the stuff that basically made it very hectic. But given all that experience, what would you say to somebody that's now looking to do similar things?
We have to be resilient. That's for sure. Again, I think the regulatory framework is paramount and it's key. Anyone who's been in my position, and there's been a lot of people that are trying to start and be an entrepreneur in this business. A lot of people have come in and a lot of people have gone out. There's been good ideas. There's been bad ideas. I think that have a very clever and unique niche. My business uses social media to a high degree to expose, put sunlight sunlight is the best disinfectant. We have found very clever and innovative ways utilizing social media to message, to change the narrative, to take back control of how companies communicate with their shareholders and attract new shareholders. Found really creative ways to use social media to create liquidity for publicly traded companies. We've also found clever and unique ways to use that liquidity to help address the short position that are in publicly traded companies as well. Our goal would be to crack the shorts. Our goal is to crack the shorts, but in ways that are utilizing technology to leverage that, right? So we use social media heavily to do so. And we do it in a very clever and unique way. And it's a niche for us. And it's been very, very powerful. We'd like to apply that same niche that we have and apply it in the broker dealer at global digital markets. So utilizing the same technologies that we're using for publicly traded companies, we're utilizing that same technology inside of the broker dealer at global digital markets and creating different ways for people to have access to the capital markets and address the short problems.
Yeah. And I would say maybe outside of the short issue, which is a massive issue, as you've hinted at, and the innovation that you said that you've seen popping up, I'm sure that there's going to be in the future plenty of companies trying to solve this issue. What other issues do you see with Wall Street that need to be corrected, corruption-wise, or anything that you see that could be heavily make a positive impact on the markets and, for retail investors maybe, that you think blockchain could help with?
All of it. Yeah, I mean, the answer to that is simple. All of it. Look, I can tell you right now, the reason why all of these technologies aren't implemented on Wall Street already, it's not because they're not efficient. It's not because they're not transparent. It's not because of anything other than one thing, money. And it's all a function of the disruption that blockchain will have on the financial markets as it pertains to how Wall Street makes money, I think is going to be profound. I really do. And because of that reason, they don't want it changed. I don't believe that they want anything. Why ruin the game, right? I mean, hey, look, the system's working for them. Why would they want to change something that's working so well for them? It's at the detriment to the people who are utilizing the markets, the people who are trading stocks, the shareholders, things like that. You want to get into this market, you have to be resilient. You have to be able to change. You have to be able to recognize that you become an entrepreneur, yeah, but you become a problem solver. Every day is a new challenge. From changing the name of your company, for God's sakes, I mean, it shouldn't take 3 years to change the name of your company. And God knows how many times I've tried to change the name of the company. It's just indicative of how many challenges you have on every front. It's just coming in from everywhere. And you have to be able to adapt and overcome those challenges and get up every morning and love what you do. That's, I don't begrudgingly get up every morning and make my way to my office. I do it excited every day at 4 a.m. I'm sitting at my desk and ready to go. And I just say, okay, what wall are we going to run through today? Because I know at 4 a.m. there's going to be a wall that's going to get put up that we're going to have to address, figure out how to solve, and then go through ultimately and get ready for the next one tomorrow.
Well, it's very inspiring to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And maybe just zooming out a little bit, there's been times in history where the status quo has been challenged. And I think people, including a lot of people my age and millennials, are starting to wake up to a lot of the corruption that's been done in the past with our financial systems and how things have been laid out and matured over time, i.e., the Federal Reserve's impact or the impact central banks have in printing away money. So I guess, do you think, as an entrepreneur yourself, as a CEO of a company, do you think this is the biggest financial revolution the country and the world has ever seen with blockchain technology?
Well, I think you're right about your generation, the younger even my generation. I'm 54 years old, so look. One of the things that's disgusted me about Wall Street is that we are living in a constant fear. We are constantly, it's crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. Every 4 years we have some kind of meltdown that the world is going to end. And look, I went through the .com, I went through the Y2K, I went through the 2008 financial crisis, and then it's this, and then it's always something. It's always something. And in the meantime, none of the problems get solved. The world was brought to its knees in 2008, right? With the financial crisis. The world was brought to its knees financially. My God, it was going to end. The world was going to end. And what's changed? The banks that did it are 40 to 50% bigger than they were in 2008. The money has been concentrated even more into the hands of the banks that did it, which makes absolutely no sense because we bailed them all out. If we didn't bail them out, they would have all collapsed. So now they're only 40% bigger than they were in 2008. Why hasn't that problem been addressed? Look, you hit it on the head. Your generation, my generation, I think everyone is tired of living in this perpetual fear of the world is going to end. And it's controversy after controversy after calamity. It's this perpetual state of fear, right? In the meantime, nothing is getting solved. Nothing's being cured. Problems aren't being addressed. Everything is being swept under the carpet. And then everything is fine again until 4 years later. And then we have another crisis, right? So, yeah, I think that everybody is sick of it. I think that the way that people, they want to see more accountability, I think. And again, that's like efficiency and transparency. I mean, are kind of our taglines, right? Because we believe that we need more transparency on how these markets are operating and how they're functioning. You can't solve the problem if you don't look under the hood. And, and in looking under the hood, all of these technologies that we've discussed, the blockchain and the digital assets and the crypto markets and stable coins, I mean, all these different things, they have to find a place, right? And they have to be able to find a place. And yeah, I think that this country in particular, once we have regulatory framework, is going to be unleashed. Nobody can do it better than the way that we do it. And certainly we have a lot of catching up to do because, other parts of the world have adopted these technologies and they're off and running. And I don't think for a second that if you unleash the American entrepreneur on the financial sector, I think that if you unleash that, there's just a massive amount of innovation that can be done in a very short period of time because the appetite is there for it. People want that change. People want that transparency. People want that efficiency, and it's desperately needed. It really is. I look forward to it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great when I see and read and meet with people who are doing innovative and creative things. I just sent a message to somebody on Nextdoor of all things. I saw on Nextdoor a woman who's 65 years old. She has a business, and she was asking for help, like from other entrepreneurs on Nextdoor. And she's saying, look, I have a successful business, but I'm having a hard time figuring something out. So I private messaged her this morning and I said, hey, I think that was really pretty cool that you were, brave enough to put that out there. You're an entrepreneur. You're asking for help, for Christ's sakes. I think that that's cool. What can I do to help you? If I can help you with resources or contacts or networks to help you, I'd be more than happy to help you. So when are you available for coffee so we can meet? It's things like that, where that's cool, man. That is interesting to me. Seeing that type of openness where, hey, I have a problem. I need help. Another entrepreneur. And she specifically said, I want to speak to other entrepreneurs in the tech space for a problem that I have and hoping that you guys can help resolve an issue for me. I just think that was on Nextdoor of all places, right? So pretty cool. I just thought that was pretty cool.
Any last pieces of advice then for maybe other CEOs out there, similar to the advice, the example you just gave, or maybe just for any of our audience, our listeners here today?
Any advice? Good luck. Good luck. It's a lot of work. It certainly is a lot of work. It's a lot of headache. I work 24/7, 7 days a week. There is no downtime. I enjoy the work, so it's fun, so for me, it's a lot of fun. but you're always on. You always have to answer your phone. You always have clients calling. You always have something that's happening. There's always a problem. You always have to deal with something. But to me, that's what wakes me up in the morning. That's what keeps me going, and it's exciting for me. Hey, in this sector, if you have an idea, if you have an idea or innovative idea or technologies or clever ways to do things or change how things are done, I'm a big advocate of being an entrepreneur and finding your passion and going and getting it. Just drive to get it done. That's all. Just work your ass off and go out there and do what you say you're going to do. It works for me. That's the way it works for me in terms of what I'm doing every morning.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's key. There is you got to just find what works for you and stick with it.
Absolutely. So Ralph, where can the audience find you? DigitalBD.io.
Yeah.
I know is the website.
Yeah, DigitalBD.io is the website. There's a couple cool videos on there that I had created that 90-second videos that kind of go through the process of what it is that we're doing. You can reach out to me through the website, or you can call me. That's 949-280-8591. I'd love to take phone calls or from somebody if you have a question or interested in looking at what we're doing. I'd be happy to speak.
Awesome. Well, Ralph, thank you for joining and being a guest on our channel today. This was eye-opening, learned a lot. So I appreciate you lending your perspective and some of the stories that you've had just dealing with the inner workings of the business and the previous administration. But yeah, thank you for coming on, Ralph. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Hey, Paul, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.